This is going to be hearing only. There won't be a vote taken today. And I'm going to ask my friend, Senator McLaren, to open us up with a word of prayer, if he would.
Would be happy to, Mr. Chairman. Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to come together, do the people's work, allow us to be thoughtful, kind, and thorough in our treatment of the material today. In your name, amen.
Thank you. This is hearing only. No vote will be taken today. So, Chairman Huffstetler, we'll let you, we'll turn it over to you and let you get started presenting your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be here in retirement. This is my 8th year chairing finance, but the 2 years before that I did chair retirement, and I stayed on 4 years as vice chair for that committee, and really appreciate the work that's done here. This is actually where the most money is in the state of Georgia, is under this retirement committee, the most money that has to be managed, and was enjoyed being a part of that. It is important that we save and that we prepare for our future. One of the things we did here in working with the Employee Retirement System Board, and they had a lot of input in setting up a system where we changed it a couple of years ago, and I sponsored the bill that increased the 401k match from 5% to, you can get up to 13%. If you've been here 9 years, it continues to go up. And so people that put money into that system can be very well off if they do that. We also had changed it in the past to where it's an automatic default when you come in. Too often the young people come in and they, you want to sign up for 401k. Well, now they're signed up for it and they have to actually opt out of it, which means I believe, I hope it's still the case, that over 80% of our people are in the system here, because it's important to save for the future. And the other thing I would say with a 401k is anybody who ever is offered one, always match it. You put money in there, they put money in there, your money has just made 100% return on your investment, because they've matched it and they've doubled your money. So it's, people talk about, can I make 5% or 10% in the stock market this year? You make 100% on a 401k match right off the bat. So always match that money, and compounding is so important. So what this bill is about is trying to set up a system, and I've run into it being probably more complicated than I realized it was for various reasons, but trying to set up a system for our small businesses. Our large corporations have opportunities for matches. All of us in the government have opportunities, so I'm doubly blessed. I've got options in both systems, and I take advantage of both systems for their matching funds when they offer it, and for the investment opportunities. But it's important that everybody invests for the future, and you try to get people started early, because there's not the defined plans there anymore, defined benefits. It's more 401k type plans, and it's important that everybody invest. One of the issues that we've run into here is the so important need to keep costs to an absolute minimum. And so we're looking at trying to combine with some economies of scales. And as an example, the ERS and the TRS have the same financial advisors that work for both plans, and that's one thing that's helped us here in the state. But keep costs to a minimum, because you can't have a plan that's going to cost 2 or 3%. And here's why: the power of compounding money. If you start off at age 20, you put $10,000 in, and they're matching you, then at 65, what you get can be very dependent on your return. If you get, I know we had a 7.5% assumed return in the past. We've had to modify some of those. The economy's not the same, but let's say you get a 6% return on your money. Then by the time you're age 65, you have $4.5 million. Now, let's say you get a 7% return on your money, you'll have $6.1 million. But if you only get a 5% return on your money, you only have $3.4 million. And y'all can get on your computer and do the calculations if you want to, get one of those little amortization things and go through it, because it's amazing how much 1% money can make. So it's so important that we don't put people on a plan that has high expenses that drains millions from their retirement. And that's been one of the complications I think we've run into, is it's so important to do that. So we have examples from other states. We've tried to set up a board. We've got some minor issues to work with on this, such as we had the fiscal audits director on the board, but also they were auditing it, and that's really not something we can do. That's probably fixable, but setting up the system has been a little bit more complicated than we thought. But we want to offer an opportunity like other states have done, so that our employers that are just too small to have their own plan could pull together into a plan. These are employees that have less than 100 employees and have a system seamlessly with payroll that would roll in. That's the plan. Unfortunately, some of the details are not there yet. And again, I say the details are so important because the costs have to be driven to an absolute minimum for this to be the best use of people's money. So the people that aren't eligible for this plan would be anybody in the federal government, the state government, any county, municipal group, anybody that's got more than 100 employees. And it says in there, if your company grows, you can stay in it for 5 years, but not longer than that, because we're trying to take care of a certain group of people in this. And then it just sets up the board and how you administer it, and that you would offer, a number of options for people to invest in. And one of those things, if you don't see it, if it's automatically out of your paycheck, then you're not going to miss it near as much, and it will be there when you need it in the future. We've set up some good plans, I think, for our employees here with a 13% 401k. We've got a great plan for our teachers. Many of us in private business have good 401k plans. If people have the discipline to stay in them, they'll be very well off when they retire. This is a plan we're trying to have something that the small business people can take part in, but we've still got some details to work out to bring the cost to an absolute minimum. So there's the essence of the bill, the concept of what we're trying to do, and I think we can do it here eventually. And I'll certainly be glad to take any questions or yield to some others to talk on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the late members that joined us, we do have a quorum, but this is information only, hearing only. We're not taking a vote today on this bill. And does any member have a question for the presenter? Let's see. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator. I'd never thought about that 100% match. That's a nice way to think about it. I have a question about line 159. The Attorney General is a legal advisor of the board, and I guess that basically means represents the board. This is a question, and we've been talking about this last year, just in general. I've been thinking about this for several years. Throughout the code, we have the Attorney General in somewhat conflicting roles when it comes to various subject matters. Sometimes we ask the Attorney General to represent state agencies. Sometimes we put the Attorney General in charge of enforcing state rules. Are there any contexts in this setting or area of the law in which the Attorney General would be responsible for enforcing compliance with the laws that you know of related to the administration of this? That would create any sort of issue with being the legal advisor?
I don't think so. And one thing about this program is it is a completely voluntary program. Nobody has to be involved in it. But I think if the only way they would maybe need to get involved is if somebody was not remitting the funds, something like that. But we will I've made a note on that, and as we go forward, that's one of the areas I'll ask the questions about.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think for a lot of these areas of law, it might be as simple as providing for conflict counsel or having some sort of idea in place for how to handle a situation where enforcement's necessary. Because if I had my druthers, I would want the Attorney General to be the enforcer of state laws first and legal advisor second when applicable. But this is me on my my hobby horse, my soapbox on this issue. So I appreciate you
Okay.
answering. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm sorry to be a late arrival, and I've talked to Chairman Huffstetler briefly about this. I guess I don't really have any particular problem with it. My question, though, Senator, is what void do you feel like this is filling? I mean, as a small business owner, we have 5 employees, and we have a simple IRA plan. It's not difficult to administer. It's not expensive to administer. It's worked fine for us, and there's just 5 of us in it. Is there a area that, have you heard from constituents or business owners that are having difficulty finding a way to set up a plan, or what does this do that a simple RA would not do, or as you mentioned in the 401k for the larger employers?
Yeah, this is a 401k model, but you guys may have, I don't know, don't have any idea what kind of investment fees are being taken out of y'all's plan by the people who administer. I don't know that, but what we're really trying to set up is an economy of scale that could potentially use the same advisors that do ERS and TRS, and I have different options out there that would do it, that would just be at a bare minimum cost. Anybody that's paying more than 1% on cost, it doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot of money. And so we're trying to drill that down to a lower level and have an opportunity for all businesses to do. And it's been, I think it's been successful in some other states. I never have any great ideas when it was surprise billing. I copied what Texas and New York did. I find somebody that does something that works and try to do that too. And this is one where it seems to have worked well in some other states, and we're just trying to copy them.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? We have a couple of people that have signed up to speak on this. Ms. Alice Bennett,
Yes, sir.
is that you?
Yes, it
All right,
is.
we'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today to you and the chair, the vice chair, and the committee. I'm Alice Bennett, Associate State Director for Advocacy with AARP Georgia, and I'm here to speak in support of the bill. AARP has been implementing and working with states to implement work and save programs throughout the country. We have 19 states that have implemented such programs, and excuse me, 15 of them mandatory and 5 that are voluntary, which is what the state here is trying to do. In your packets, I think you all have a presentation that you were presented by AARP. I just want to walk through just a few slides on that just to share some information. And when you look at, the very first slide after the cover page, when you talk about financial insecurity risks that's on the rise, research that we have done through AARP and the Center on Retirement Research shows that half households are at risk of not having enough money to support their lifestyles when they retire. If you look at the next slide, you will see that nearly 60% of households have no retirement assets at all. And I'm going to go through these kind of quickly, and if you look at what we're calling a financial security scorecard, there's a map there, and there's a key at the bottom of the map that shows Georgia between the numbers of 3 and 4. And then when you look at the full scale, that means that Georgia's a little bit worse off than other the states when it comes to being prepared for retirement. Looking at that scorecard, it considers things like the potential retirement income of individuals, which the center has spoke to some, and that just kind of looks at whether or not the employee or the employer is participating in a plan, what the account balances look like for that plan, and how or whatever the pension costs are related to that plan to identify whether or not they have the potential income that they need. It looks at the major retiree costs as it relates to housing and medical expenses that are out of pocket. That could be prescription drugs, Medicare, whatever that looks like. And it also looks at the labor market conditions for older adults, and that's kind of looking at unemployment and then the median income of individuals and how they'll be able to sustain themselves as they get older. The next slide kind of talks about there are 55% of the private sector employees in the state of Georgia, and that's about 2 million people who do not have access to a retirement savings. And then when you look at the next slide, you talk about whether or not people can do it as a small business employer and why aren't they doing it on their own. Some of them are, as the gentleman here has stated, but we also know based on the research that we've done that if you allow an opportunity for individuals to save for retirement through an employer, they're 15 times more likely to do so. And when you make it automatic through their payroll deductions, they're 20 times more likely to do so. So we already talked a little bit about Work and Save is, and it's just allowing the state to set up a program where the small business can enroll and the employee can also enroll to save for their retirement. The program that we're talking about is automatic. The senator has already talked about that. Voluntary, already talked about that. And it's portable. So if the employer is enrolled in the program, the employee can go from job to job and they don't use the opportunity to continue to build on the savings that they've already started. The next one that I want to talk about is the Georgia Taxpayer Savings Slide, and that's the one that's got that big $8 billion number in the middle. The research from Pew Charitable Trust shows that today, as of today, as many as 56 million private sector workers lack access to retirement savings through their jobs. The analyst for Pew has stated that such limited savings could lead to a cumulative additional cost to the federal government to the amount of $964 billion between 2021 and 2040. The cost that is created for the states is going to be around $34 billion, and for Georgia, that amount will be $8 million towards the programs and whatever it takes for the federal government to sustain those types of programs. So that's one of the biggest reasons, of course, we think it would make sense for the state to have a program that's this way. And then the Work and Save successes, as the senator said, there's a map in here that shows the states that have past Work and Save programs. The dark red ones are the ones that have a mandated program. The ones that are more pink or a little bit more brighter red, they have voluntary programs. You have Massachusetts, Missouri, New Mexico, and Washington. Missouri was the one, they just passed their program on last year. And then the final piece that I want to share is the programs, states that have done the programs, they have earned or saved $1.2 billion in assets, and when you look at the contribution rate for the people who participate, it's 5% or more. So those are all of the statements that I have, and of course, again, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We have Ms. Devotis Lee. Did I pronounce that correctly? Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Retirement Committee. My name is Devotis Lee. I'm actually the proud business owner of D Cafe and Catering, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. I started my business in 2013 and with the intentions of actually honoring my family through food and building a future for us. Opening my business was a way for us to share my family's recipes and favorite treats with the city that I love. I currently employ 4 people, 2 full-time and 2 part-time. When it comes to my cafe, I am always thinking about ways to grow my business. However, to compete as a small business, you have to be able to offer competitive benefits like retirement, which oftentimes some things most businesses can't do. When you're a small business, you have to wear many hats. At D-Cafe, you're not just running the business. I'm actually doing the hiring, I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the operations, and I'm doing the finances. And any other tasks, I have to be the one to make sure that that is done. I work about 15 hours a day, and when it comes to even thinking about offering retirement, I wouldn't even know where to start. The Peach State Saves would make a huge difference for my business. The way it reduces the financial and administrative burdens that come with offering competitive benefits like retirement would help so many small businesses, including mine. Anytime a program makes it easier for a small business, instead of adding additional burdens to the business, it's a win-win for a business community. Peach State Saves would also impact my ability to retain my current employees and help grow my business by bringing in new talent. In the food industry, there is a lot of turnover of workers, and being able to offer retirement benefits might help me keep my people who might want to leave for a better opportunity that offers benefits, or bring in new faces to help share our wonderful food with the Atlanta metropolitan area. I urge the committee to support your local small businesses and pass Peach State Saves so that we can focus on what we do best, and that's running our business. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much. Chairman Huffstetler, is there anything you wish to add?
No, I'll just
or-
wrap up, and I did want to add, I don't think Chairman Walker was here for the very beginning when I was talking about the money, and not everybody's as financially astute as the powerful insurance, chairman there. But the importance of, it's going to be very important to me that we have minimal cost and spread this out. And the example I was given earlier that I know everybody wasn't here for, if you get a 7%, you invest $10,000, you get a match from your employer at age 20. At age 65, if you're getting a 7% yield, you're going to make $6.1 million. If somebody's pulling off 2% of that 7%, you're going to get $3.4 million. There's a lot of difference between $3.4 million and $6.1 million. And so it's very important that we keep the cost to an absolute minimum and use economy of scale so that people can get the yield that they need to get. I know a lot of these companies out there, if somebody says, I'm paying 1%, 2%, no big deal. It's a big deal. And that's going to be one of the hang-ups in this that we're looking at, is we've got to make sure that our costs are an absolute minimum. I appreciate the committee's time, and we'll continue to work on this and hopefully be able to do like some of the other states and offer an opportunity to our small businesses on this. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Yeah, I'm sorry I came in a little bit late, but I do deal with the retirement plans. One of the things that I find with small businesses, it's a burden is if you look at the paperwork that it takes to put a plan in place, and then is how do you pay someone to do that? I think our number one issue is education. Most of the employees have no education in how retirement plans really work. You can have a non-contributory 401k, you can have a match 401k, and there's various types of 401ks that are in place. But I think our educational process, and only I believe 2 years ago did we allow in our high schools for there to be any training for the retirement programs. I can tell you this, going into a group, if they're under 30, they don't participate, even if there's a match many times, because if it's less money that they have to do, but they don't look at the long run. And I really think that as much as the cost is not just in the funds, it's in the education, administration, and somebody has to handle that, because you've got an employer with a payroll, you got to handle payroll tax and all the other stuff. And I think we've got to find a way to educate our people. And I think really to train them on the issue of retirement out of high school and college, and especially when we have a plan that is a contributory plan. I had a client come to me and he says, I've got this and this. I said, well, what does your employer match? He was looking for options for money, and his employer matched 6%. I said, how much are you doing? He says, 2. I said, that you're throwing money away. But I really believe that our greatest issue is education. And if you look at your funds going out, whether it's American Funds or many of the major fund companies, they list the fees that are there, and they also rank them. We have target funds that are based upon age, because somebody says, I don't know how to pick. Because under a 401k, that responsibility goes to the employee, not the employer. Not many employers want to take that. But that's another part, is that we need to find a way to put an educational piece together, I believe, because people will not do what they don't understand. And I think that's the issue. And how do we do that, and how do we get that paid for? Someone has to follow that through. But that's just kind of a comment from what I see. This is using the economies of scale of what the state does, and that's great. But somebody's got to make it happen and help the employer understand that. The other part is when an employer has up and down times, like we saw when we hit COVID. There were companies that had to shut down their contributions just simply because of what was going on. But those are just some comments that I would say as you're pushing this forward. The educational piece, in my opinion, is critically important to our young people, because they are the ones who, if they do it early, it's fantastic. It can be really worth some money from that standpoint, but they've got to be educated in that process. But fantastic. I think it's a great way to do it, but I think we've got to educate our people from that standpoint.
Right,
Thank you
as
for
we
bringing it.
talked earlier about, well, 2 things. As your point, 6%, why not match it? You match it, you just made 100% on your
Right.
stock.
Yep.
Because you matched it and your money doubled. And then the education piece is getting people to understand compounding. It's magical what compounding can do over a period of time.
I will give you this. My father, when I was first married, offered a bounty to the first of my sister and I, whoever gave him a grandchild. And he put up $5,000. I won, by the way. And we put that into a mutual fund account for them. And I have done the same thing for all of my grandchildren. And if you look at what $5,000 will accumulate at age 65, they have a large sum of money if you invest that wisely. And I think we need to look at ways for that, because our Social Security system is already under duress. But we need to find ways that these young people could actually have more money that way if we didn't tax them. And tax is one of the major issues that we're dealing with. But you're exactly right. Understanding the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. And I think that education piece, we've got to put it in high school. And I think we have to put it in college, because the gentleman I mentioned that didn't understand the match, he had a PhD. And so, you never know what you got from that standpoint. But great bringing that. Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll appreciate you coming, appreciate all of you audience coming, and thank you for the input, information. And as always, Mr. Potvin, we appreciate you being here and your staff, and appreciate the great job y'all do. And we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.